30 years of piercing. Coming up next on Body Piercing Basics, episode number 156. For those who are new to the channel, welcome to the Body Piercing and Tattooing channel. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Hope you're finding them helpful and useful, but you may not know who I am. My name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and I operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio, located right here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. What I'm going to talk about today, it kind of occurred to me a while back that as of, I think, the 5th of May, right around in there, I've been piercing professionally on my own for 30 years. And I thought it'd be interesting for me to kind of talk about what those experiences were like, what transpired, and kind of what I see for the future, and et cetera. And, maybe those are getting into the industry, maybe some motivation to get into the industry or thinking about it. So I'm going to cover what I would consider probably the questions that most people ask about this subject, and we'll just go through it and see how it comes out. And the first question is, why did you start piercing in the first place? I had a desire to get pierced. I wanted to get my nipples done at a young age and just could not find anybody out there that I really felt, especially locally, that had the capability of doing it. There was very few options, basically. It's like me and a friend of mine used to have an old saying back in the good old punk rock days of the late 80s and early 90s of available everywhere but Des Moines. And this came from this attitude of going out and trying to find something that we really desired, like a new record or clothing or, I don't know, just about entertainment in general, and being disappointed because they don't have that here, regardless of where you were going. So there was always this kind of attitude that, yeah, that'll work everywhere but here. And to me, and a lot of people during that period of time, especially in the music scene here, had kind of gotten to a point where it's like, no, it can happen here. And there was kind of this push to bring things here and make things happen here in Des Moines that I had growing up in like a DIY situation, but through BMX and skateboarding where nobody wanted that, and then going through the punk rock movement where absolutely nobody over the age of 25 wanted that, and going, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to make this happen. And piercing kind of fell under that alternative culture thing. And it was kind of that we were all kind of experiencing this uprise of whatever it was called, of this underground kind of bubbling up of the subcultures, and in music mainly, in the mainstream, and in fashion, and in things that were done in closed, dark alleys prior to that. The last reason was I wasn't really happy where I was at as far as a career and what I was doing for work. At the time, I was working as a third-party collection agent. You know those people that call you up after you haven't paid your whatever bill, like your credit card bill or an old mortgage or car payment for like 2 years? I was one of those people. And basically, I just got to a point where I kind of looked around the room and I went, alcoholic, I think drug addict, alcoholic, and realized that as far as drinking or substance abuse in my entire life, it was at its worst at that point in time because it was how I was surviving. It was how I was getting to sleep. Basically because it was a stressful job that I didn't enjoy. The only real part of enjoyment I got out of the whole thing was the debate element, and anybody that knows me personally knows that I'm very opinionated and I can turn I love to debate subjects, and also finding people that just simply had gotten into a situation that they didn't know how to get out of, and trying to educate them and push them into or not really push them, but kind of move them towards a way to solve and resolve the situation. That was rewarding. But the rest of it was monotonous, stressful, and not enjoyable. The next question, what did piercing give to me? It gave me some great friends and mentors to start out with. Sherry Sears and the Sears family and the people at Creative Images, they are the ones that helped finance and helped getting me set up and going as far as starting to pierce professionally. And continue to be a mentor for years after that, even after I left Creative Images, as far as answering questions I had about certain things and what it took to operate a business. They were always in my corner. They referred, even after I left there, they would refer people to me. It is a large part of one of the reasons why I think I was successful at first in the first place is because of that support that I got from them. The next one on that list would be Jack and the Skin Kitchen crew. I've worked with a lot of different tattoo artists, sharing space with not Creative Images, sharing space with Skin Kitchen Tattoo. And Jack has always been in my corner, and I've always been in Jack's corner. And like the YouTube channel, very supportive with that. I don't think I would have gotten it off the ground in any way, shape, or form without his help. I probably could have done it, but it wouldn't have been as easy. Continuing to pierce, he has helped me out there financially in some cases, in other cases just being there and listening, and us sharing and bouncing ideas off each other to how to make the business better, and that's been a big part of a large portion of my career. Next on my list of people that I probably would have never came in contact or possibly would not have created the bond with would be Paul Gray. Paul Gray, many people know who he is. He's famous. He's no longer with us, sadly. He was the bass player and one of the main creative forces behind this band that some people may have heard of called Slipknot. He was also in a band with me called the Have-Nots with Joey. Him and Joey played guitar. I got the pleasure of working with him creatively, which was incredible to watch the two of them work together and create songs and perform. But that friendship led to a lot of other great friendships and great experiences. It got me into rooms that I may not have normally been in there to experience things that I probably wouldn't have experienced, especially in the music industry. People often go, oh my God, you got to do this and you got to do that. It's not so much that I got to do that or got to do this, but I knew somebody or for one reason or another, I just happened to be in the right room when that thing happened. Another person I met through piercing that has had a large impact on my life is Lanny McCleary. Lanny is just a local dude. He's a great guy. He is one of those people that if I have any trouble in my life, and I hope he knows, vice versa, that he would be there in a second if he can. We've always had that kind of a friendship for well over 30 years now. We're not around each other as much as we used to, but when we do get together, it's just like we never stepped away from each other. I met him through, I don't know if I met him before or after he got pierced, but he definitely was a part of the early studio period of the Axiom being on its own down on East 5th in Des Moines. Always there, always part of it, always a fan. Another person I need to mention is Frank Plumley. I met him through Paul Gray. Frank owns a couple studios here in Des Moines. We have kind of this unwritten rule where we don't talk about piercing because it's a different. So his shop is what it is, and what I do is what I do. But he is also one of those people like Lanny that has always been there for me whenever I needed him, and I would be there in a second for him if he needed me. And then possibly one of my best friends in the world, Sophia John. I met Sophia John through Paul Gray. A little bit of background on Sophia. Sophia was the first manager of Slipknot. She was a DJ at a local radio station called 107 The Dot 5. See, I got it right if you watch this, Sophia, because I used to always go 0.5. And she would get really mad because it was called The Dot, which was like the first alternative radio station in Des Moines, and it was the last independent radio station in Des Moines. Sadly, it closed. She was also one of the first people to bring like a large music festival to Des Moines that was radio-based, that had like name bands on it, and et cetera. And she helped to shop and get Slipknot signed and got them the deal they needed to get with Roadrunner Records. She has also been a very supportive person in my life. Whenever I had problems or concerns, she's there in a heartbeat. I love talking to her on the phone. We can talk about music for hours, and she's just a great and wonderful individual. And the last person on this list is my son's mother, Jessica. Even though we didn't work out in a relationship partner situation, she is a big part of my life because she gave me one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had in my life, and that's fatherhood. Quinn is a great individual. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. In fact, we had dinner last night. He's 25, but I would not give up that experience of spending time with him throughout his childhood and development and helping him become the man that he is, I hope, in a little way, for anything in the world. It was just, and I would not have met her probably unless I met her by piercing her. I didn't hit on her, and there's a long story to that, and Sophia's involved, and you guys don't need to be bored with that. Now, the other thing that piercing has given to me is my ability to explore things that interest me outside of piercing. It's given me that freedom to explore hobbies or work hobbies into the business that I normally wouldn't have, including web development, building websites, doing all that, the YouTube channel. Also, something completely un-piercing related, my work as Axiom Promotions and as a talent buyer. For those who don't know, basically from about 96 to about 2001, and then from about 2005 to 2006, and then from 2015 to 2018, I booked a lot of shows at a nightclub venue that was very important to the Des Moines music scene. It was originally called Safari Nightclub, and then it was called Harry Mary's when it was bought, and then it closed and turned into like a college bar for a while, and then it was reopened as Lefty's Live Music. My work with them got me to bring many bands to this city that never would have came here, and a lot of people told me, back to that available anywhere in Des Moines, is it will never work here. And much like piercing, I wanted to be a part of making live music happen. Safari is probably best known for giving Slipknot its run up. Sean Cran owned the venue for a while, but the truth of the matter is we did a lot of shows there under the various different names, a lot of my favorite bands. I gained a lot of long-term friendships with a number of these bands over the years. There are people that I can run into in Seattle on vacation and they'll go, "Hey, DaVo, how's things going?" And immediately we go right back to when they played the venue. So, and some just kind of name off a few, I guess, off the top of my head: Social Distortion, Agnostic Front, U.S. Bombs, Murphy's Law, Dropkick Murphys. I was the first person to do a Murphy's show in Iowa. Did it in Sioux City, actually. Fort Defiance is one that sticks out in my head right now. The Dickies, Guttermouth. A lot of punk stuff, but I did a lot of metal stuff. I choose not to remember most of that. But there is a list on my personal site, DaVoAxiom.com, if you want to look at that. Another thing that piercing has given me is interaction with people of very diverse backgrounds, thousands upon thousands of them. I have had the ability to interact with somebody for that 20 to 30 minutes that it takes to go through the consultation and aftercare and piercing, and learn about their lives, their point of views, their opinions, and socialize with them. And that is a huge part of piercing that I think a lot of people don't understand and a lot of people aren't very good at. The reason why I'll have clients that's like, I only go to him, is because I'm willing to take the time and learn a little bit about them. I love going into the motivation, what they do for a living. I have questions about that, what that experience is like. It's great to learn things every day that you normally wouldn't, and learn them directly from people that are living in that environment or living that life. And the last one here is very important to me. It's educating other people about my passion about piercing, the thing I'm most passionate about. I have had the opportunity to educate thousands upon thousands of people about body piercing, even those that haven't gotten pierced over the years. I've had the pleasure of being kind of a liaison, so to speak, for piercing. And that's an incredible honor in something I really enjoyed doing, especially kind of the reverse of my way of giving back from all that education I got about other people's lives, letting them in and letting them know about something I care about. And I can't imagine not doing this job without that. I always had a policy, if anybody walked in the door, even if they were asking to use the restroom, that I would try to, if the subject came up, give them a little information about body piercing and what we did here and how the experience is and etc. The next question that I came up with is, what is the biggest changes I've seen in the body piercing industry since I started? The biggest one is probably the standardization of the industry, and it's still an ongoing thing. Things that weren't standard at the beginning, it was kind of Wild West kind of situation. Anybody that came through that period of late 80s of getting into, tattooing and piercing or any body modification, it was kind of a catch-all of various different experiences, usually not very good. Tattoo studios were usually in the crappiest part of town. There was always kind of a criminal intimidation element to it. It really had, that older generation had kind of existed because of that, because it was considered kind of an antisocial activity. And watching that slowly change has been incredible to me, that acceptance. The thing is there really wasn't a standard. Most of the people that pierce, they did it as a sideline because people kept coming in and asking for it, so they would go order a tape from Gauntlet or somewhere and watch this video and then learn how to do it, or they read the how-tos in Piercing Fan Quarterlies International and took it from there. That's different now. The idea of apprenticeship, outside of Gauntlet maybe, that we have now, where you have to go through a process of learning how to pierce and that it's a long period, really didn't come into vogue or come almost standard to it until the late 90s. Before that, it was pretty much hang up your shingle and go for it. The biggest thing that was different for me in a standardization was a standardization of educating clients, doing things like pre-piercing consultations, giving written instructions, going through those instructions verbally, having that support system for the client. That really wasn't a part of it. It was kind of get them in and out as quickly as possible. That was kind of the mainstay. Jewelry. Jewelry was pretty simplistic when I first started piercing. You had beaded rings. I don't know if seamless rings have become a thing yet. Threaded labrae studs, usually externally threaded. Barbells, cat bead rings. I would say something like 80% of what we did with cat bead rings. That has changed a great deal. The jewelry is a lot better. The designs are a lot more. There's a lot more design out there. Very beautiful stuff, well done, etc. And that kind of goes into that standardization. But the things that kind of that became a standard were things like implant grade and certification of implant grade materials. Prior to that, it was we're guessing this stuff works. We don't have any third-party certification that it is what they say it is. And that really didn't come about until we had this massive influx of foreign-made or jewelry made outside the United States and the third world. And suddenly all of this stuff came onto the market that nobody had a clue what it was made out of or where it came from. So that standard of jewelry material, that standard of quality of the jewelry, finish, etc., was not a thing. The other thing with jewelry is internally threaded and threadless jewelry. Those are all brand new. That's something that wasn't around when I first started. I think internally threaded jewelry had come about. There was a German manufacturer that was doing it, I think as far back as the early 80s. But as far as, if you ordered things from most manufacturers, even the top ones, everything was externally threaded. The other thing is cross-contamination prevention. It really wasn't something we knew a lot about. We had kind of basic understanding of it. Things were autoclaved, but that has come a long way from when I first started. And it became more of an educational process in tattooing and also in piercing, and that's made both of them a lot more safer than they once were. It isn't, and it isn't because they just didn't give a damn. It's because a lot of cases they just didn't know better. This idea that a lot of them had this idea that if they put on a pair of gloves, that a magical barrier would keep everything clean, which is not the case. Another thing back to jewelry is the standardization of threading, that one piece from one manufacturer to another manufacturer will work. The other thing with threadless was this idea that all of it's universal. You can use backs, labrets, and barbells, and etc. With fronts from a different manufacturer, and it always works together. In the past, when I first started, everybody had an idea of how that threading should be sized and what type and whether it was millimeter or metric or if it was American standard, and it was a mess. If you bought a piece of jewelry from one manufacturer, it didn't work. The ends didn't work on another one. And I kind of touched on this, inclusive environment. The piercing studios have turned more into a more inclusive environment than it was when I first started. People were already in the tattoo industry. There were a lot of places that were just like, we're more of an art-ran studio. The use of the word studio became instead of shop, or parlor, which was another one that we would hear often. It changed things. It made it more easy for people that maybe aren't, I don't know, involved in antisocial behavior to feel comfortable in those studios, which is something that they didn't have before. Also, I mean, it was kind of like going kind of to a gritty part of town and kind of dealing with some maybe shady characters, and that has long since gone away. I'm sure there are still situations where that's the case, but not as much, or it's not as much as it was back when I started. The other thing is inclusive environment for those of different sexual orientations, different race, etc. That's changed a lot too. And lastly, tools and methods used in piercing make it a lot easier to do a piercing correctly, and reduce issues after the piercing is done. Guide pins are a game changer. I don't know how else to explain that. The wide use of needle receiving tubes, threaded needles, etc. All this stuff has made the process quicker, less painful, easier to do so that the piercer can concentrate more on doing the piercing correctly, and made healing much easier with the proper use of the proper jewelry as far as material and design. This one I get occasionally from people in the industry. How'd you stay in the industry so long? I support a family, friends, and mentors. Is a huge part of it. You have to surround yourself with people that are supportive and are going to help you through the process and keep you challenged and moving forward and growing as an individual. I think that comes with any type of career, regardless of what it is. Even if it's, you're the guy that follows the parade and scoops up the poop, having a mentor and having people around you that's going to, it seems like a simple job, but there's technique involved. There's good ways to do it and there's bad ways to do it. If you don't have somebody there to say, hey, you should do it this way because it's much easier, or you can do this better, or you can promote your business better this way, you don't really succeed. You don't move forward, and you're going to be more frustrated, you'll be more prone to want to quit, and etc. And you're not inspired, so you're not doing new things. The next one is learning to live cheap. Piercing industry has gone through a lot of roller coaster rides over that 30 years. When I started was at the beginning, at least here locally, of the naval boom, and we saw an influx. When I started, there was no other piercers in Des Moines. I think within 2 years, there was probably 20 of them. Most of those are not in the business any longer, but it really affected things. The $25 piercing with extremely cheap jewelry and garbage really affected how that industry went. It kind of went through this downturn, and all that stuff kept it there for a while. Recently, in the last, 10 years, I've seen a massive growth as far as income potential, for a lot of different reasons. Some things that I did on my own because I felt like they needed to be done, and just generally the piercings being more socially acceptable and people doing multiple piercings. It used to be back in the day, somebody would come in and get a navel piercing. You were lucky if you saw them come back to get the jewelry changed to something else, but you probably would never see that person again. Nowadays, when you're working on ear work and all this other stuff, and maybe they're getting their nostril done, then their septum done, then the other nostril, then an ear, I see clients repeat business more and more. Back in the day, you pretty much relied on referrals when I first started. To get your navel pierced, because I was doing 20 to every other piercing that I was doing at the time. That's changed a lot. A lot of that has changed, but learning to live in a budget that when you're having a great time, you can buy those new toys, but when things are slow, you're still comfortable. It takes a learning curve to learn how to do that and make those sacrifices. The next one would be other income streams. I have done all kinds of part-time jobs during my piercing career. Let's see. I delivered pizza for a while. I worked as a towing company dispatcher for a while. I was a bouncer. I was a promoter of live music and a talent buyer at a local venue. I built websites for other people. I was a bar manager at a fine dining restaurant and also bartended there. I've bartended at other places. I've been a showrunner. I even worked at a porno theater as a cashier for a while. Having that other source of income really helps. YouTube, a little bit. Usually people are like, oh, you're making all that YouTube money now. Even when we were doing our best, generally what we did is we just bought more equipment and then once a month took everybody out to eat. Or we went to a Cubs game here, an Iowa Cubs game or something. It was more like we have some extra money, let's go on an outing. There isn't a lot of money in it. Website, there's a little bit of money, but usually it pays for itself if I'm lucky. The next one is just being pig-headed. I don't know how else to put it. Having the desire to be in the body piercing industry and just saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, hell or high water. And having people around you that understand that desire and that passion and are willing to support you. There are times when I could have made a great deal more money doing something else, but I stuck with it and it paid off in the end. However, it is a risk and a gamble, especially if you are self-employed. You own your own business. You are the only person that can fail, and you're the one in charge. So it does come through this just generally like, yep, I'm going up that hill regardless of how many people are up there. Inspiration from others in the industry through the internet, which is something that piercing has had for its majority of its existence as far as a profession nationwide or worldwide, is getting inspiration through social media, getting inspiration through new jewelry designs, getting inspiration through interviews of other piercers, and just generally having that kind of support system to get new ideas, things that can make you go, oh, wow. I don't know how many times I've seen a new design come out of a piece of jewelry, and I'm like, wow, that would look cool there, 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 and there. And that is one big motivation. Next one is, and I get this one all the time, why don't you do extreme and experimental piercings? Number one reason, it's very limited, the demand for those piercings. The other thing is I wanted to focus on doing the piercings that were in demand as best as I possibly could. So I decided to focus on that for the best results. The second one is long-term effect. A lot of these extreme piercings, there is a element of danger involved with them that could cause long-term damage, and I preferred to be safe instead of sorry. The last one is, what do I see as a future of piercing? I see further standardization of the industry. Eventually, I think some of this really terrible jewelry is eventually going to go by the wayside as better manufacturers start to produce better products and they just get squeezed out of the market. At least that's my hope. Expanding jewelry design and quality. That's always going to be a big factor when it comes to piercing. The better the jewelry, the better the designs, the more the demand, and the better the results. Medical applications. There may be a time where putting a piercing in could, read your blood sugar level or monitor your heartbeat, etc. That might be something we see in the future. Who knows? There's been some experimenting with it already. And the last one, which is probably the most important thing, is further widespread acceptance of piercings in those people that wear them. Well, that's it. Did you have any insight or questions for me for my 30 years in piercing? Put it in the comments. I'll be happy to answer when I have time. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease without a single issue. And if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you in that next video.